Well, at 20 minutes to 5, we can now say the decision taken in 1975 by this country to join the common market has been reversed by this referendum to leave the EU. The British people have spoken, and the answer is we're out.
Welcome back to Brexit Britain. It's been just over 5 years since you decided to call time on the UK's membership of the European Union. And on this anniversary week...
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day!
Was this speech from Nigel Farage inevitable? We retrace our steps and ask whether Brexit was always going to happen. And what about ourselves? We made some predictions of what would happen if we voted to leave. We take a look at what we said and we try again going forwards. A world without British television? It could be reality. The EU has its way post-Brexit. We analyse the possibilities and...
We are Britain and we have one dream, to unite all people in one great team.
It's a song written by and for children, but is a one-nation Britain even remotely possible? Thursday, 31st of June. 5 years on, this is a special edition of The Weekly with Jeremy Barr. Welcome to the programme. Just before we go to our top story tonight, we have a news flash to bring you around Matt Hancock. As you know, he resigned as Health Secretary over the weekend over an affair he started with an aide, breaking physical distancing in the process. This statement we've had just come in from the Prime Minister. It's a response to a request for comment by The Weekly on the matter. Allow me to read the statement out in full. It reads, "Cocky," that's the nickname Mr Johnson has for the former Health Secretary, "and I have spent many years working together and he fucking sucks. I'd have fired him, but I have to resign myself over the hypocrisy which I was not prepared to do." He adds, "I'd like to wish Mr Hancock's wife well in her upcoming divorce proceedings, and I hope she receives the compensation that she thoroughly deserves." Former Chancellor Sajid Javid has been installed as his replacement, and he has promised not to cheat on his wife. Moving on now, this was the moment the referendum date was announced by then Prime Minister David Cameron.
On Monday, I will commence the process set out under our Referendum Act, and I will go to Parliament and propose that the British people decide our future in Europe through an in-out referendum on Thursday, the 23rd of June. The choice is in your hands.
The then Prime Minister wanted us to stay, but was denied by Vote Leave, fronted by Boris Johnson and Michael Gove. Nigel Farage, prominent Brexiteer, set up our discussion tonight by arguing this to Susanna Reid on the morning after.
The £350 million a week we send to the EU, which we will no longer send to the EU, can you guarantee that's going to go to the NHS?
No, I can't, and I would never have made that claim. That was one of the mistakes I think that the Leave campaign made.
And so some changed their minds about Brexit on the spot, but it was too late then. But what if it wasn't? What if Remain won the day? Where would we be now, and what challenges would we face? It was referendum night when the bookies had Remain favourite to win by a slim margin. Nigel Farage was ready to concede defeat. After all, such a stunning upset was very unlikely. And of course, it was just out of reach in this alternative view of reality. But the next 5 years are nothing like the easy way we first thought. In the 7 days immediately after the referendum, UKIP's membership shot up from 34,000 to over 120,000, a near fourfold increase. And while David Cameron was able to remain in post, the development caused him to squirm. The closeness of the result led to the Prime Minister returning to Brussels. He wanted to secure more concessions for the UK, arguing the result justified it. He was quickly laughed out of the complex and returned to Downing Street shortly afterwards. Meanwhile, Labour refused to attribute the Remain victory to its leader Jeremy Corbyn. All that no-confidence stuff you saw in our version reality, well, that still happens. David Cameron limped on until 2019. Bruised by the failed attempt for a new special relationship with the EU, he bowed out, meeting a campaign promise he made not to lead the party in an election 4 years earlier. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage never went away. He sponsors Boris Johnson in his Conservative leadership bid and manipulated the media and the public psyche to believe that support for Leave had shot upwards in the years since. Johnson won and took office in late March. The new Prime Minister didn't want to waste any time building his mandate and immediately called a general election for Thursday the 6th of June. He won big, increasing the Conservative majority from just 2 to 96 as Jeremy Corbyn lost his grip on leadership of the Labour Party. The Conservative manifesto was a simple one: win an outright majority of seats and we will trigger Brexit. No referendum, no delay. So here we are, back here again on the 7th of June 2019. It just took another 3 years, but well, Brexit, according to our calculations, was always inevitable. Moving on, and let's take a quick look at the news on the Brexit front. Enough is enough, it seems, for former Speaker of the House of Commons John Bercow, who elected earlier not to rejoin the Conservative Party. He defected to Labour, and now more fallout is emerging over his decision. His former home branch of the Conservative Party are now crowdfunding a lawsuit against him, alleging that he broke a pinky promise made in 1997 to be the hardcore right-wing Eurosceptic politician the constituency had selected him for. And it doesn't stop there. Current Prime Minister Boris Johnson has recommended to the Queen that he be selected for target practice by her armed crossbow unit. The list of targets is published by Buckingham Palace on July 14th. The Home Office has come under renewed fire this week for suggesting it plans to remove EU citizens from the UK for no other reason than it can. The department was accused by Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer on Friday of power tripping over its plans to take non-UK residents to the boundary of international waters and throw them overboard into the English Channel in a campaign starting in mid-July. Home Secretary Priti Patel did not return a request for comment. And mobile phone provider EE could lose thousands of customers over plans to reinstate EU roaming charges for British network users. One customer contacted TNN last week stressing that the reason they're planning to quit wasn't because the charges were being reimposed, but rather they couldn't trust the communications giant to be honest. EE has also since admitted that Kevin Bacon is American and not just a British guy with an American accent. Both announcements on Thursday caused their share prices globally to tumble. 5 years ago, we were on air to predict the future in a Brexit-Britain world. In this report, we examine those predictions in the context of the last 5 years and suggest what might come next in Brexit, the fairy tale debunked.
Friday, 24th of June. Britain wakes up to find that we've voted to leave the hellhole that was the European Union.
Really? Wow, Nigel Farage really had us think that.
Our Prime Minister, who campaigns tirelessly for us to remain, now finds his life in tatters. He has no option but to resign with immediate effect.
You know, I'm more surprised it was just David Cameron who wound up quitting. I'm looking at you, John.
Nigel Farage has been planning this day for decades. The dream of ruling this country is no longer a dream, for Parliament has voted him in as Prime Minister.
Oh, he so wishes that actually happened.
The new Prime Minister wastes no time packing his bags and getting out of Brussels. Just as the whole city floods with the tears of Europe now Britain isn't there.
The irony here is that Britain almost always gets more rain than the continent, and well, quite frankly, they were quite happy to see the back of him.
England's Independence Day from Europe is set as June the 30th, just 1 week after the referendum.
It wasn't, but it was on this day that the former UKIP leader officially lost his sense of humour. What a shame.
Within weeks, the air of the country is cleaned up and the chaos of Europe moves onto the continent. The people are at peace once more.
This also didn't happen, and it's widely acknowledged that this was the fault of Jeremy Corbyn.
To encourage nationalism, Nigel Farage starts a lengthy project to paint the land of England in the Union Jack colours. By the end, satellite imagery shows the flag painted on the country.
Great Britain, great nation.
By 2020, England is the sole survivor of a devastating nuclear war which killed everyone else. Untouched, they keep calm and carry on.
It's funny this, coronavirus was something of a catastrophe. You know, does this count as a prediction? And does anyone remember this from later in 2016?
A new disease spread to destroy mankind. Stay tuned to find out what it is.
And what about the future?
With coronavirus being a big influence on the path forwards, it might go something like this. In August, the Prime Minister will contract COVID for a second time after a diplomatic trip to Israel. The disease will hit him badly enough that he becomes chronically unwell and, by Christmas, has to resign as Prime Minister. Sir Keir Starmer is likely to be forced out as Labour leader as well by the end of the year over his relative inaction on the Brexit and coronavirus front, as the party continues to suffer unprecedented defeats in successive by-elections. Matt Hancock makes a run for the Tory leadership but is knocked out in the first round, receiving 0 votes. Michael Gove ultimately wins out and pledges, in one true nation style, to erase Scottish, Irish and Welsh history, starting in schools. The Labour Party in England is taken over by its Welsh and Scottish counterparts, funnily enough, with Mark Drakeford and Anna Sarwar becoming co-leaders. They do an efficient job, but we don't have the data just yet to assess the impact. As far as Scotland is concerned, Nicola Sturgeon continues to sit on her independence card, waiting and waiting and waiting. We're still scratching our heads over whether IndyRef 2 will ever actually go ahead.
Television now, and the EU has announced plans to cut British television completely from their networks, which begs the question of whether the entire back catalogue of British produced content could be deleted by foreign powers. But how will the UK's Telly addicts cope without their sweet, sweet release? Joining me now is one of them, named for his parents' favourite TV character, Basil Fawlty. Basil, welcome to the programme. How many hours of the day do you typically spend watching television?
Usually like 21, 22 hours.
Wow, you must not get very much sleep at all. So with Brexit threatening the very future of British television, how would you feel if there was no television, if you had to rely solely on radio?
What's radio? I've never heard of this radio before. TV's all I know, mate. I mean, my friends were telling me something about this thing about being outside, but I looked out my windows and it looks quite dangerous. I think I'd rather stay here and, maybe cry.
That sounds really tough. Do you plan on doing anything about it at all? Petitions, campaigns?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've thought about writing a letter and posting it to my neighbour because I feel like she could be able to do something about it because she's quite tough and strong that way and she's quite resourceful, I've heard. She sounds like she would be really, really good at being able to sort this mess out.
Ah, I see. Good luck. With that in mind, do you regret the UK's decision to leave the European Union?
Sorry, what was that? I was watching some Line of Duty. I mean, have you seen that show? It's quite mint. It's quite pretty good. I mean, I don't know if I like this series as much as the previous entries, but I feel like the characters have maybe developed.
Basil, thank you very much for joining us. Now, this tune may have stuck in your head this week.
We are Britain and we have what we
It has been ridiculed by many who have heard the tune, with some comparing the tragedy of that tune to that of Hitler Youth in the 1930s. In any event, OBON Day slipped up. It forgot Scotland's schools have gone on holiday, skipping the One Nation celebration outright, and the reference to Britain seems to be an ominous sign that Northern Ireland might soon be given away to the Republic. In that spirit, we've rewritten the song, and we wrap up the show tonight with this very special performance. Good night.
We are Britain and we have one dream. As long as you are English and nothing else, fuck the Scots and Northern Ireland too. I am Boris Johnson, bow to thee. Great England, the world hates us. Great Hancock, he loves to fuck. Great England, they laugh at us. Great Johnson, he made us sing this song.
I mean, Breaking Bad is quite a show. I mean, have you seen that Bryan Cranston? He's tremendous. He's absolutely tremendous. He's so good. he's like the way he can capture a scene with just his mere presence. I mean, I've never seen an actor quite do something quite like that. And I mean, again, I've never read the comics, but I'm more about the visual of watching the TV rather than the comics. I mean, who's got the patience to sit down, read a comic? I mean, like, it's the words there. Why do I want to read words when I could just hear other people say, saying words?